Welcome back to Cube coverage. This week we've got Leo playing the Canonical Vintage Cube. Leo is quite an experienced player. He's already earned one golden cube from coming first in a season on the cube ladder, and I'm looking forward to see how he navigates this draft. We see he's already pulling a few cards to the front. So we've got one initiative creature, Ancient Tomb, Sneak Attack, Ponder, Philia, a couple of lands seem to be the cards he's mainly interested in. Initiative is a bit of a feature of this cube. It's a very powerful thing to be doing. Essentially, when you take the initiative, you get an effect every turn, and that effect cannot be stopped. You keep getting it every turn, unless your opponent hits you with a creature. Then they steal the initiative. So it's kind of a way for mid-range decks to fight against removal-heavy decks, close the game out a bit more reliably. The initiative creatures tend to be quite powerful and a bit controversial, so looks like he's considering Feywild Caretaker as a blue initiative creature, but a lot of reasonable options here. Personally, I'm a fanatic of Ancient Tomb. We'll see what he looks like he's leaning towards, but lots of pretty reasonable options in contention here. And it looks like he's pondering a lot about the blue or the white card. Sneak Attack is certainly an exciting way to start a draft, but it can be quite hard to get the enough redundancy to make the deck work. And it looks like he is going to go with the Feywild Caretaker. So maybe going for a bit of a blue mid-rangey strategy. And the next pack we see three very expensive cards straight away. So he's got a very nice blue card with Mystic Confluence. Baraglyph, also pretty reasonable. Brain Freeze for more of a combo route. Very typical Vintage Cube things. I spy a Hex Drinker in there. Given that he's picked up the initiative creature, I'd be keen to get a lot of tempo-y plays, ways to get ahead early, some mana acceleration, but you can just play it on rate, play it face up. There's some matchups where people's plan against a blue deck is to play very defensive or play a very value-oriented game, and he likes the Mystic Confluence. This is a very flexible card, bit of an icon of Vintage Cube, given that it's not seen any play in any constructed formats. Kind of a reasonable commander card, but in Cube it has a great flexibility. Usually you're going for counter a spell, draw two cards, or draw three cards, and maybe mixing it up with the bounce when you're really falling behind on the board. Next pack we see a fetch land. Fetch lands are very high picks in Vintage Cube because they synergize with quite a lot of lands, quite a lot of spells, and you often have enough playables, so you're quite happy to pick up non-basic lands. They're competing with basic lands, which you're quite happy to replace. And given that he's already in blue, a blue fetch land is a great option. Hull Breacher also very reasonable. Mox Diamond, the kind of acceleration you kind of want, but 5 mana is getting to the point where a Mox Diamond isn't really helping you cast that spell very often. In fact, sometimes it's worse than a land at casting a 5-drop. But in the abstract, it can be quite good just with your 2 and 3 mana spells. No real reason for him to be getting out of blue anytime soon. Looks like he's considering the black cards in the pack. There's a Tutor and an Archon of Cruelty. But it is hard to pass up an on-color fetch land. This cube does break singleton for the fetch lands, so there's twice as many as there are in a regular Vintage Cube, but there's such high picks among experienced players. They tend to disappear very quickly regardless. It's quite hard to get more than 2 in a deck. So we've got 2 expensive blue spells, a fetch land. He's pretty set up against control and combo-y decks at the moment. His main fear is if his opponent is producing a lot of cheap creatures, especially with flying or other evasion. That can be a big hamper on him. He really wants his opponent to be playing expensive spells, which not many people are doing in Vintage Cube, unless they're going all the way up to 8, 10 mana with some of the crazy mana production. So we see another fetch land that's not on color, Chrome Mox, which is very similar to Mox Diamond, in the consideration there. Firebolt, a pretty reasonable card. Elvish Mystic, Deceiver Exarch. So Deceiver Exarch combos with Splinter Twin if you're playing a blue-red deck. There's a bit of redundancy for both sides of the combo, so that's an enticing card to pick up and maybe fill out later. Fear of Missing Out, also a newer addition to the Splinter Twin combo. So if you have Delirium, Fear of Missing Out plus Splinter Twin or Kiki-Jiki is a win. But it looks like the fetch land is still very tempting. We see some decent red getting past, a bit of green. Oh, looking at Golos, so maybe if you can pick up Golos with some good non-basic lands, it can get some good mileage, but it is a bit more of a fringe player. Firebolt for more of a normal deck. Court of Garenbrig can kind of... It shores up a lot of green's weaknesses, but you do want to be really heading down the green route, and so far he's only really locked into blue. Exarch, a bit of a controversial card among Vintage Cube curators. Some arguing it's past its prime, it's no longer good enough. Some arguing it's emblematic of what combo is in Cube, and some just saying, it's a fun card. And some saying it's a very frustrating card to lose to. It gives blue decks, a good out to extreme situations. It's almost like a Wrath of God in some ways. If you're really falling behind in the game, the threat of being able to instantly kill your opponent if they're not interacting with you enough can be the kind of thing that shores up a really rough matchup where you just get behind early and can't catch up. Notably, it does dovetail quite well with the initiative, because initiative is quite punishing against people playing slow game plans with lots of removal, and that's the kind of thing that's good against Splinter Twin. So he is picking up the green-white fetch land, so still perfectly reasonable in a blue-black deck or something similar, as long as he picks up some appropriate dual lands. So we see a blue-black mana rock, a black-red hybrid card, Subtlety, one of the free evoke elementals from Modern Horizons. This is a nice piece of cheap interaction. Helps keep him on board and in control of the game, especially with a bit of card draw. And it's also just a very reasonable payout for going late. I've had a lot of games where casting Subtlety for 4 mana and just beating down with it is a really good game plan. So here we see Dig Through Time, Grizzlebrand, Lion Sash, Tiger. Malcolm also a surprisingly good blue card that kind of flew under the radar during spoiler season. It fits very well into Vintage Cube because it enables the Reanimator type of strategies. It's good with counter spells. It's good at setting up combos. So Leo is picking it up. And it's also just kind of a reasonable card to play as it is, especially if you've got, some expensive spells to free cast off of it, and Leo certainly does. So currently he's only picked up blue cards and lands. The green-white land, much more flexible than it might appear at first. We see an Underworld Breach, Force of Negation, Deep Cavern Bat. So a combo card and 2 pieces of interaction. Underworld Breach it's got to be a little tempting because he saw the Brain Freeze going around earlier. Brain Freeze is a low priority for most drafters, so there's a decent chance Leo can get it if he wants it, but the real linchpin of that strategy is you want a Lion's Eye Diamond, and Lion's Eye Diamond, depending on how combo happy the other drafters are, that one can be quite hard to pick up. But it looks like Force of Negation is also a pretty reasonable choice. Force of Negation allows blue decks to play a bit more of a sorcery speed game, tapping out. Matches well with a 5-mana creature without flash, so he doesn't have to go shields down against some kind of Reanimator or combo plan. And Deep Cavern Bat, just a pretty reasonable black card, I would say more on the filler level. At some point he's likely to commit to a second color, but I think it's wise here to be waiting on it as long as possible to get an idea. If the table's passing him some cards that he otherwise wouldn't be getting, it means that he'll get hooked up later in the draft as well. He can take an opportunity when it presents itself. City of Traders also a card that performs a bit better than it looks. So a key aspect of it is you get to make 4 mana off of it at minimum before having to sacrifice it. Often making 6 or 8 if you can hold off on a land drop for a turn. So it's just kind of a way to accelerate to your 5 mana spells with less of a drawback than it might look. And it looks like he's going for the Underworld Breach, so trying to pick up that Brain Freeze, trying to pick up that Lion's Eye Diamond. There are a couple of other little combos with Underworld Breach, but that's the primary one you want to be going for. And Fiery Confluence, so this is a kind of like a split way of destroying lots of creatures or dealing lots of damage to your opponent, depending how the game's looking, whether you want to be offensive or defensive. And I mean, he's got 3 of the more aggressive blue cards in his deck, so he could just be playing a blue-red tempo kind of strategy. And he's going for it, so that represents a lot of burst damage. So if his opponent's counting on racing him, he might be able to surprise them for extra damage when the game looks, not as close as it is. So Malevolent Rumble, considering a green card. That one is a very nice cantrip. It's been making waves in Modern. We see Omnath there for the 4-color players. Seasoned Pyromancer helps with setting up combos. Just a bit of card filtering. If you're empty-handed, then it can also just draw 2 cards without having to discard. So it's kind of like a card advantage if you're emptying your hand out frequently. But Rumble is the kind of acceleration that can get him up to casting his 5-mana spells ahead of schedule or in spots where he'd otherwise be quite constrained by mana. Manamorpho is also an alright card with Underworld Breach as a bit of a backup plan. Sometimes you just draw 3 or 4 extra cards off of it if your graveyard's really full, but it's not what Underworld Breach is about. You really need to pick up the other combo cards to make it worth running in your deck. So he's looking at the Pyromancer, I think. And he's going to take it, so solidly in blue-red so far. Not really deep into any particular combo. Just kind of a solid blue-red strategy. If he can pick up some counter spells, he has some good insurance against combo decks. Red's got the removal spells for small creature decks. So it has a good matchup spread. It can cover a lot of different strategies. A difficult deck to play as well. And he's going for the Grim Lavamancer. So for the initiative, this is really good at helping him maintain control of the board. He's picking up an artifact removal spell. There are a ton of artifacts in Vintage Cube, so these artifact removal spells, you can play 1 or 2 of them in your main deck. Fiery Confluence already covering that role a little bit. but depending how things shake out, I could see him just playing this as a 2-mana 2-1 a lot of the time. Unusually for this type of strategy, he's a little light on instants and sorceries. So he's looking to pick up some cantrips, some removal spells in red, some counter spells in blue. Just some stuff to cover what his opponent's doing and make sure he's drawing the right cards in the right order and giving his creatures space to finish the job. Blue decks, especially in these high power formats, are characterized by somewhat anemic creatures, but backed up with the best spells in the game. We're just waiting for packs to come around the table. So if he gets back the Deceiver Exarch, that's a really strong sign that he can move into a blue-red combo-y strategy. Regardless of the deck he's playing, he wants to pick up the cantrips to find the right interaction spells at the right time. So Firebolt, a great removal spell. It really is. It's a very efficient design because you don't really what you could care about the most is costing 1 mana and dealing 2 damage early on. And then the flashback, you're not in much hurry for that. You'd much rather get off the first cast, keep yourself alive, and then once it has extended the game, you have plenty of time to flash it back for lethal damage or to clean up some kind of utility creature that starts mattering later in the game. So he's got a pretty even spread of creatures and removal. The creatures might not look so impressive, but the combination of flying and the initiative is really good at closing out the game, stealing back the initiative if something happens to it. You'd like to pick up a few more counterspells, I think, and a lot of cantrips. So Carnage Interpreter, another empty hand kind of card, but this dual land can be searched up by one of his fetch lands, the Windswept Heath, and same with Tiger. So this enables his Windswept Heath to get an untapped red mana. Ghostfire Slice, also a pretty efficient burn spell, so this is one that you often want to point at your opponent to finish off the game, but he's going for the dual land. And Zerta is the last pick. That one is a bit of a niche combo card. Very hard to companion. There's Basalt Monolith and Grim Monolith that combo with it, but it doesn't see a huge amount of play in Vintage Cube, so I'd be surprised if he's main decking it in this one. So his 2 fetch lands currently don't provide any color fixing. Windswept Heath gives him the option of fetching a tap land for a Surveil. But if he feels like branching into green, that does represent 3 green sources already, so he has got a bit of an opportunity there. Green in this strategy mostly providing a bit of mana acceleration just to get to these 5 drops a little earlier. And we're ready to crack open the second pack. 15 cards. So from the deck review, he also has quite a high number of playables. He can pick lands fairly highly, but he doesn't have to stress about getting them. Overall, his deck is just kind of an even split between all the things he wants in the ratios he wants, except for, I'd say, cantrips. He'd like to get some more card filtering, looting, that kind of thing. So he's got Seasoned Pyromancer and Malcolm doing a little bit of looting. But the power of cards like Brainstorm and Preordain and Ponder is just crazy. It's very hard to match those. See, Fanatic of Ronus, some dual lands, Dismember. Despite looking black, it is playable in any deck if you're willing to spare the 4 life, and quite often these vintage games are decided by larger life swings than that. So we see a Mox. A Mox is fantastic. Very hard to pass up a Mox. It's first piece of power for the draft. If you've never played with the Mox, they're a little unassuming. They they're a bit better than a basic land, and obviously no one's excited about a basic land, but they often represent 3 or 4 extra mana for free, depending how your land drops shake out. And I mean, yeah, at no real opportunity cost, being up 3 or 4 mana on your opponent is just colossal advantage if you have anything going on. So we see another fetch land, Lutri, a very low opportunity cost card. I think underestimated by a lot of players. I would say it's simply never bad. You know, it's impossible to lose a game by drawing Lutri at the wrong time, because you don't have to draw Lutri. It just lives outside the game, and you call upon it whenever you have the mana to spare. Fractured Identity, a great removal spell. It's a little not unclear why this is better than simply stealing something. Essentially, it steals a permanent and then flickers it, so you get enters the battlefield effects. If it's a planeswalker, it resets it to its starting loyalty. There's just a couple of extra wrinkles to it that add a lot. And of course, it can't be undone, so your opponent can't have an enchantment removal spell to get back their thing. It's just yours forever. But Leo's a little heavy on the expensive spells, so he might not want to go for it, even though I think he's also considering if he wants to play white. So currently he's locked into blue-red. He can add white to his deck to have Fractured Identity. And Fractured Identity is one of the reasons to play blue and white. He can go a little safer with the Chain Lightning, or the Lutri, or the Fetch Land. Chain Lightning, something he's got a little bit of already, so I don't think he's too stressed about getting that effect. But with Grim Lavamancer, cheap instants and sorceries can really keep that card running. And same for the fetch land. There's also Gitaxian Probe if he wants just a cheap cantrip, but I don't think that's a high priority for him. So he's going for the Fractured Identity. That makes his third 5-mana spell, so he's probably not going to be picking up more expensive spells for a while. But a great steal effect. And there's Time Vault. This is another unique inclusion in the cube. Left out of a lot of vintage cubes because it can be quite anticlimactic to lose to, often winning the game in a single turn. But if you can pick up a way to untap it or otherwise subvert the drawback on it, it's very easy to set up a win, and it's very hard to interact with is a key point. Because it's not a creature, because it works the turn you play it, because it's so cheap, a lot of the conventional ways of interacting with a combo just don't work against Time Vault. Otherwise, we have Chandra, Third Path, Iconoclast, some fetch lands, Occult Epiphany, Submerge. A lot of cards he could very reasonably play. But I think he's hoping to get some cheap creatures going, because if he faces up against a deck that's not playing small creatures, some kind of combo deck or something, but he's picking up the Time Vault, very, very reasonable. There's a very high upside to that, and he's got a high enough playable count that if it doesn't make it into his final deck, he's not too upset. So Volcanic Island is a great fixing land. Preordain also very good. So because he has Polluted Delta, he can get effectively 2 copies of Volcanic Island, more if he gets more fetch lands. If he is going towards 3 colors, the fixing is going to be a priority for him. And without Deceiver Exarch coming back around, he is probably not going to be playing a combo strategy. He's going to be playing a bit of a tempo strategy, so get some flyers down, have removal for whatever's killing him fastest, get his opponent down to 4 or 6 life and then finish the game off with burn spells. So we see Daze, quite a nice interaction spell. Kappa Cannoneer for an artifacty deck. Fire Ice, another removal spell, but one that's modal. So it deals with small creatures. The tap ability is alright on big creatures. Sometimes you just tap a land as a bit of a tempo play. But the key thing about the tapping side is that it effectively lets you cycle the spells. So if your opponent's not cooperating, if they're not playing cheap creatures, you just cycle it off to draw a card, and then you're not being bogged down by a handful of removal spells. So going with Daze here, Daze is great against expensive spells, because if your opponent taps out on turn 4 or turn 5, Daze often has no drawback. Mana Leak also great here, a counter spell for him. Saheeli good if he can trigger it a few times, but he seems a little light on the non-creature spells actually. If he had a couple cantrips set up, then Saheeli would be better. It is very good with the Mox, very good with the Daze. We also see a plateau there, so that doesn't give him much more coverage with his fetch lands, but there is a Triome in red, white, blue. So the Triome can be fetched with either of his dual lands, and it means that he effectively has 3 copies of the Triome if he has time to let it come into play tapped. So that's a big boon to his fixing. It means if he draws any of those 3 cards, he's got all 3 of his colors on turn 1. But he's weighing up, there's a lot of other very reasonable cards for him to consider here. Mana Leak, a good pairing with his other flash cards, Subtlety and Malcolm. And with Subtlety, he does actually want to keep his count of just blue cards in general quite high, because not only do you need another blue card in hand to cast the Subtlety for free, but it's a lot better if you have the options, if you have multiple blue cards and you can decide which one is worst at the time. It's kind of like a roundabout card filtering spell in that sense. So he's going for the Mana Leak, keeping the blue spells count high, being able to interact with his opponent's combos. We see Lim-Dûl's Vault. This is an old weirdo, a tutor. Effectively, you pay some life, you look at some cards, you can pretty easily get any card you want to the top of your library. Lorien Revealed, also good. So it's another copy of Volcanic Island. It's kind of like a fetch land, and if the game goes late, he can just cast it to draw 3 cards. Now he's quite heavy on things to do at 5 mana, so it's not going to fit into his curve that well very often, but the opportunity cost is so low, he can just play it as a land pretty much no matter what. Trinket Mage, it's alright in this deck so far. It gets his Mox, so it's effectively like a mana dork. And it looks like he's leaning towards the Lorien Revealed. So if he gets this white-black Surveil land, it means that his blue-black fetch land can actually get a white source, which opens it up a little bit. But yeah, Lorien Revealed being another copy of Volcanic Island helps his mana quite a bit. And here we see Jace, a good bit of card filtering. If he can flip it quickly, then he has a threat that's immune to creature removal. Good at recycling his other removal spells. If he can cast Fiery Confluence twice, that is a lot of damage. So Jace could represent a way for him to close out a game really out of nowhere. In fact, with the Initiative and Fiery Confluence and Jace and his other burn spells, he can deal 17 damage without attacking a single time. Pretty reasonably. Just doing a review of what he's got so far. So he's picked up a bit on the cantrips side of the deck. Plenty of removal. I think what he'd really like here is some cheap threats, and Jace fits into that pretty well. But the Canal is tempting, as if you don't pick up the lands early, it's pretty hard to get them late. Once everyone knows what colors they're in, they tend to pick lands quite a bit higher than normal. And he's going for the Jace, so this is a nice cheap threat. If the Jace survives, then he doesn't really have to tap out after that point. He can just kind of keep up counter magic and removal and keep the Jace going. So he's picking up the Dismember on the wheel, a very cheap removal spell. So good removal, good counters. A bit of a top end. There might be some hectic turns where he needs to tap out for a 5-mana spell and put his shields down a bit, but Mystic Confluence being an instant and being a counterspell and an interactive spell itself really doesn't have quite as much risk to it. So we see Chain Lightning and Gitaxian Probe. This kind of just comes down to whether he wants another removal spell. The Gitaxian Probe not explicitly working with anything in his deck, but it's good with Jace, it helps with subtlety, it does a couple of small things. It's good with Grim Pyromancer. He didn't wheel the Brain Freeze, so his Underworld Breach is probably not going to make it in. But if he wanted to play a fair breach strategy, Gitaxian Probe's another way of filling the graveyard. And he's going for the Chain Lightning. I think neither of those cards are super high priority for him right now. He's got Eagles of the North, another land fetcher. Submerge, a sideboard card. Submerge, a common card in Legacy. It's very brutal when it lines up because it's so good against expensive creatures. Eagle's one of the worst land cyclers, I think. The impact of it is just so low, and white decks are a bit less common to be in the multicolor strategies. But he's picking up the Eagles. It's got a low opportunity cost. If he can find some lands with planes, then it helps fix his mana a bit. So we see Prismatic Ending, another removal spell, and Birgi. Birgi is mainly for the combo decks, so on the front face it represents a lot of extra mana. On the back face it can represent a lot of card advantage, very good with draw spells. Fire Ice, a nice pickup, low opportunity removal spell. And Iganjo is quite similar. Adanto Vanguard, not quite what his deck is typically after, but based on the amount of red burn, I could see him shifting into more of an aggressive deck, so play out a really nice 1, 2, and 3 mana creatures, back it up with some counter spells, and then he's got quite a lot of face damage. So even if his opponent locks him out on 12 life, he can get the last points in just with spells. And this is what I mean about not caring about the Firebolt flashback cost, because I think in this kind of aggressive strategy, he's quite happy to pay 5 mana to deal the last 2 points because it'll be the last turn of the game. You know, he has time to set it up. So no companion for the Time Vault just yet. The combos with it are Manifold Key, and there is a land in green that is evading me at the moment. I believe there might be a third one that combos with it. But the key intention, at least, is that people are not going to pick up Manifold Key unless they have Grim Monolith or Basalt Monolith, so you can get that one pretty late in the pack. And we're just setting up for the next pack. So some key things that Leo could be looking out for, something like Ragavan. He's already passed the Dragon's Rage Channeler, but something like that, or an Amptaraptor, just some cheap creatures to get on the board quickly, or if he can find the rest of his combo strategy, that would be nice, but I think his deck is less set up to do a combo thing, and he's more just playing a fair game, so removal on counterspells. Counterspells really overperforming in Vintage Cube as one of the few ways to have game against a combo deck when you're not super fast. So we see Comet. Comet is an Unfinity edition, very powerful Planeswalker. We also see Strip Mine in there. Great land there, but with Leo trying to get to 5 mana, he's not going to be using Strip Mine all that much. We see more fetch lands for mana fixing, the Amptaraptor, and another counterspell. Displace a Kitten, a combo card. It works pretty well with Feywild Caretaker. I don't think he's got much else that works well with it. With Seasoned Pyromancer, you can kind of go off. But Comet is quite great. So you get a random mode on it, but all of the modes are better than you would expect to be on a 4-mana Planeswalker. And anytime you roll a 6, the game just kind of runs away. So he's picking up Comet. His deck is great at controlling the board. He's got ways to disrupt combo. And then he just wants to close things out with the Initiative or Comet or some Burn. Because even if his opponent is playing more efficient creatures, if he can stop them a little bit, get in some damage with the flyers, and then Fiery Confluence just gets him way ahead in the race. So he's checking out this fixing land he could pick up. Oh, Nadu. So Nadu is kind of a new combo edition. It's very good with Lightning Greaves and a couple of other cards. Sylvan Safekeeper. So if you have ways to target your creatures without spending mana, Bristly Bill is also pretty good with it, as is Scythecat Cub if you're in green. But this would represent a 4th color for Leo. But there's nothing in here that's too appealing for him. He can't play the Splinter Twin as he passed on the Deceiver Exarch. But yeah, the land is a much safer pick. Mostly just another copy of Volcanic Island, making sure his mana is nice and smooth. Has the option to get a tap surveil land. Cogwork Librarian, a kind of wonky card, so if you draft Cogwork Librarian, you can use it to get 2 picks out of a pack later on. It's not as good in the 3rd pack as it is in the 1st pack, but it's still got a bit of utility if there's nothing else in the pack that he particularly wants. Otherwise, he's got a 3-color fixing land, Gush. He looks pretty interested in the Cogwork Librarian. Doing a little bit of a survey if there's anything in the pack that he particularly needs. But for an aggressive Jeskai deck, there's nothing in there that I think he's really going to miss. And there's a chance that the next pack has got something that he wants to use the Librarian on. So he is going to take it. He has to show the draft table so that they know what's going on when he picks 2 cards out of the next pack. We see a decent amount of black cards. Treasure Cruise, Otawara. Otawara is a Another very low opportunity cost removal spell and gives him coverage against big creatures, which he mainly has his counter spells and Mystic Confluence for, but there aren't a lot of big creatures that are really worth playing in this cube, so he doesn't have to worry too much about having a bounce spell. It's mainly about the modality. If there's one permanent that is really ruining his day and he just needs the Otawara, but it's more useful in a combo deck. There is a Lion's Eye Diamond coming around. That's got to hurt a little bit, knowing that if he'd picked up the Brain Freeze, he would have had the full trio. I'm not sure it would have still been better than what he's got going on at the moment. So, not a big missed opportunity, but one of the appeals of Vintage Cube is setting up these kind of combos. So, whether they help you win or not, a lot of players veer right into combo whenever the opportunity presents itself. So yeah, he's got a pretty even split on creatures and ways to interact with his opponent. It looks like he's considering Lightning Bolt, and he's going for it. Very efficient spell. He's also always got to give some consideration to whether he wants to use the Clockwork Librarian and just get a second card out of the pack. So either Spell Bomb, more of an artifact card. We see Considerer, pretty reasonable cantrip. Leyline Binding, so in his deck he can actually get it down to 2 mana pretty often if he uses his fetch lands in the right way. But he does only have 3 fetch lands. So it's not quite as easy to get going as it is in constructed decks. Just sorting through, taking stock of what he's got so far. So I think on some level, he would have rather seen a Brazen Borrower or the Fairy Mastermind come back, or something on a bit more of a threat angle. But if he can draw Feywild Caretaker on a fairly empty board, that can be the only threat that he needs. So Headliner Scarlet, more of a red creature-based aggressive card, but if it stays alive, it draws a couple extra cards. It's tough. The Scarlet is kind of what his deck is short on, but it's really not what his deck wants. And he's going for the Consider. So picking up another cantrip, when you have all the card filtering, you can be quite light on what it seems like are the important spells, because you just draw them almost every game. So in his colors, we have Burst Lightning through the Breach. Horizon Canopy, even though it's green-white, you can play it in decks that are not green and just have it as a hedge against flooding out in the late game. But he does have quite a bit to do with 4 or 5 mana, so I'd be surprised if he picks up the Horizon Canopy here. And there's also the Cogwork Librarian sitting there waiting to get used. So obviously useless in the last pick of the pack. You do kind of want to get usage out of it before it gets obsolete. So Chill is also a sideboard card. Giver of Runes can be pretty reasonable. And he's going for Sensei's Divining Top. So it's good with his fetch lands, ways to shuffle his library. And it looks like he's not going to find a combo for the Time Bolt, unfortunately. Wow, there's quite a bit of green being passed late. I did not pick up on the signal earlier in the draft. But he's happy about the red coming around. So Oliphant, another low opportunity cost card. Just land cycles, finds his volcanic island. It's not the most typical use to just kind of hit your 6th land and cast it out normally, but it's a reasonable backup option. Otherwise, we have Sheldok Isle Quite an old land, but one that's held up pretty well. With enough card draw and fetch lands and ways to get through the top 20 cards of your library, Shelldock Isle can just represent a lot of mana and a free card for a land. Still weighing up his options here. And he's going for the double pick, the fixing land and the mana rock. So Coalition Relic helps him get to 5 mana. Fixing land, always just a good pickup. And we've got the next pack. A bit of a Oust, a pretty good removal spell. Corridor Monitor, another pickup for a Splinter Twin deck if he was drafting that, but the opportunity is passed by. See if he can maybe pick up the Splinter Twin on the wheel. And as a backup plan, there are some decks where a 2-mana 1/4 is just a reasonable blocker against your red and white aggressive decks. You can wall out Adanto Vanguard and similar sized creatures, which is something that blue can often be weak to because a 1 or 2 mana creature gets under blue's counterspells. Blue can't really bounce it. But he also has his red removal spells for those kind of creatures. Blade Splicer, also an alright filler creature. He doesn't have a way to flicker it or really exploit it, but it's a reasonable attacker. Or Oust is just a very efficient removal spell, but Corridor Monitor also a little bit of a backup plan with Time Vault. So he could play Time Vault Corridor Monitor and just use it to get 1 extra turn. And he's considering the Oust as well. So with all these removal spells, he can reasonably set up a game where the board is just clear and he plays Feywild Caretaker or Comet, and that runs away with the game. And he's going for the removal spell. So lots of removal, lots of interaction. If he can stick a threat and the opponent doesn't deal with it, that represents a lot of damage. Jeweled Amulet, a very weird card. The text is very long. Essentially, it's like a 1-mana treasure, so it's a little bit like Gilded Goose. It helps you play a 3-mana spell on turn 2, or a 4-mana spell on turn 3, but it doesn't just generate free mana. So once you've spent that mana, you have to put a mana back in to store up the mana again. So it's less about getting lots of mana for free, and it's more about being able to play 3, 4, and 5 mana cards that would otherwise be very clunky. Kind of allowing you to bank mana between turns smooths things out a bit if you have a rough curve. So lots of viable options here. We have Amped Raptor, Deathgreeder's Champion. Adderley is very hard to cast in his deck, and he's going for the Deathgreeder's Champion. Oh, the Splinter Twin did come around. It seems like no one's in the Splinter Twin deck. But Pyroblast, an alright interaction spell. The Wandering Emperor, also pretty decent. The Flash, normally really big here. He's got 3 counter spells, so Flash being relevant, but he would kind of want maybe 1 or 2 more counter spells for the Wandering Emperor to really be amazing. And he's a little bit loaded up on removal and expensive cards. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him just pick up the Pyroblast for the sideboard here, hedge on the Nadu, something like that. And it is the Pyroblast. So just an efficient 1-for-1 against other blue decks. Really good in counter wars. Not a lot of blue permanents you really want to snipe, but the flexibility and rate on it is better than anything you would get for a normal card. So not many picks left. Looks like his deck is pretty locked in as it is. So plan A, get down a cheap creature, get some damage in, play a little bit of disruption to stop his opponent from blowing the game open with some kind of combo or big spell, and then finish the game off with burn. But these blue-red decks are very hard to play because they have so much flexibility. You know, the burn spells can be offensive or defensive. The flying creatures, you do need to block with them sometimes, and knowing when to leave up counter spells is very hard as well. So it'll be a taxing deck for him to play. There's a lot of decks that these kind of tempo decks can beat, but it's really taxing. And you do rely a bit on drawing the right cards, lining things up the right way. So on the wheel we see Lumberjack, a red-green card. Spyglass Siren, just kind of a filler flyer. Not his ideal pickup, but much more playable for him than the big artifacts or the land. Siren also a card that, so he is picking up the Portal to Phyrexia, just making sure no one else has got it. So if someone's got a Tinker, they can't find the Portal to Phyrexia if they're playing a big mana deck. There's a couple of decks that really want the Portal and are counting on people passing it, so Leo just doesn't want to see that on the other side of the table. We have Novice Inspector, pretty reasonable 1-drop. I could see him going for that here. Bit of reunion, a bit of card filtering. He doesn't have the right combos to make the Lion's Eye Diamond work, unfortunately. But there's a world where he plays Lion's Eye Diamond with Underworld Breach just as a value thing, if he thinks that he has enough removal that games are going to get to that state. And he's going for the Wrenn and 6, so opening up to 4 colors here. Just Wrenn and 6 recurring fetch lands and dealing with small creatures. More removal, more value. So Trumpeting Carnosaur, a bit of an overcost removal spell. Relic is a sideboard card. And yeah, just picking up a Relic, bit of a filler card. When he's playing against Reanimator, he'll be glad he's got it in the sideboard. And end of the pack, Thalia. And final card, Cogwork Librarian. Made it all the way back to him. And we're off with Leo versus Brendan. Got the opening hand set up. Leo looks like he's got everything he needs to get going, and starting off with a Surveil land. So, likely trying to look for a threat here. His hand is very heavy on interaction and removal. If he can get any 2-mana creature down, he can really get things going. Sensei's Divining Top going to do a lot of digging for him. Slow start from both players. No turn 1 plays. And we see another removal spell. So Leo is a bit interaction flooded, and this is one of the things he was kind of worried about. His deck's not really getting anywhere yet. He's very good at keeping himself alive, but the question is that going to win him the game? And Brennan with blue is often a bad sign to see when you're loaded on these removal spells. And the main deck Duress, wow, that is a lot of hits. I'm guessing he's going to go for the Mystic Confluence here. Unless he's got a really impressive creature that he wants to protect from the Oust. So we've got Oust, Fire, Ice, Mystic Confluence, and Prismatic Ending. So he's got something for something cheap, something big, something small, and something non-creature. Taking a good look here. Oh, sorry, this is Felix on the right, not Brendan. So, as we thought, Duress taking the Mystic Confluence. Take a look with the Sensei's Divining Top. That is some great hits, so he really likes the Pyromancer and the Malcolm are great from here. He's got the fetch land to reset. We'll probably see him going 2 cards deep and then shuffling away the land and probably some other garbage beneath it. Pyromancer are a surprisingly good threat against these kind of counterspelly combo-y decks. They don't usually have the interaction to deal with the tokens. He can ship away his blank removal spells, try and find a counterspell or some kind of Planeswalker or Advantage Engine to get going. And just considering his options with Sensei's Divining Top. So if he goes for Seasoned Pyromancer next turn, he is priced into drawing the island, and he's not thrilled about cashing in his removal spells just for a basic land, especially when he has to have that fetch land to clear the top, so he doesn't really want to discard the fetch land. But it looks like he is in for drawing the Pyromancer, clearing the top of the library. He doesn't have a blue source or a white source just yet. So the Volk is tempting, but yeah, I believe that's he can't get a white source off of his Scalding Tarn, so that's the best pick for now. And firing off the Seasoned Pyromancer. Oh, and it's been Stern Scaldinged. That is pretty bad for him, so Felix knows that Leo's got no pressure going. He's got time to set up something. We see a cantrip, we see more card advantage, so Leo's spells are just not playing at all here. He's going to need to use Divining Top, hope that there's something good on top. Maybe get a Jace or something. Oh, and this is devastating. So he's drawn only 1 threat all game. The 1 threat's been very effectively neutralized, and yeah, he just hasn't got anything going. So if Felix has got any kind of combo kill or control game plan, it's looking really rough for Leo here. And we see in Felix's hand just spotted a Ponder, Sol Ring, so Sol Ring Prismatic Ending is alright against, but it's kind of too late in the game for that to be very impactful. And Leo knows it's going to be a long time until he draws something relevant. I think that's a dig through time in Felix's hand as well. Oh, this is a rough pairing for Leo. I imagine he'll just be cycling off the Fire Ice here. I think that's a Time Warp as well. In for 2. And Sol Ring just into Time Warp, so it's going to untap with 6 mana. None of Leo's cards interact with this at all. Not an enormous Time Warp, but I think just looking to fill up the graveyard, get some action going. If he can fire off the Dig Through Time, he can set up whatever's going on. And Leo's going to go for upkeep, tap the Sol Ring, just deny Felix 2 mana, unless he's got an instant to use. And he does, so we're firing off the Dig Through Time. Taking a look at the top 7, taking the 2 best cards. We have Lose Focus, a counterspell, 2 lands. Oh, a threat. 5 mana 5/4 Menace, a bounce spell, and Upheaval. Upheaval might be how he closes this game out. So if Felix can get to 9 or 10 mana, fire off Upheaval, Soul Ring, and then a Harvester of Misery, then that's a fast clock. And even though Leo's got 2 removal spells, the Oust will play here, but Felix has got plenty of time to set up a way to play through Oust. So I didn't see exactly what he picked up here, but very good chance it's the Upheaval. Just checking, so these are cards that put cards on the bottom of your library, sometimes in a random order, sometimes in the caster's order of their choice. Hymn to Turak. So he's going to clear out Leo's hand, maybe get rid of the Oust. And yeah, it's just Prismatic Ending left in Leo's hand now, which is okay against the Sol Ring, but I'm guessing that he's going to save it for a more relevant threat. If he hits a land here, he can make some tokens off of Seasoned Pyromancer. I don't remember if he's left one on top, but it looks like he's going to go digging for a more relevant spell instead. And we see a land, Wrenn and 6, and Fractured Identity. Wrenn and 6 okay here, but not really getting much progress. He might just go for the fetch land, clear the top, see if he can find Comet or Feywild Caretaker to really get the game going. The really wild play would be snapping off the fetch land, tapping the Sensei's Divining Top to draw for 0 mana, and then just having a 1 in 25 chance of ripping Comet off the top. If he can do that, I think he's in good shape. But it is a pretty risky play. He's wasting a lot of mana if it's not exactly Comet on top of the library. So he is going to draw the fetch land first, and he's just going to deal with the Sol Ring. Oh, sorry. He is playing Wrenn and 6. Getting back the fetch land, getting a bit of card advantage, a bit of mana. So this will last a couple turns with only the Trinket Mage in play as pressure. We see a fetch land out of Felix. Taking a look with Ponder. So there's Mana Vault, Aether Spellbomb, and Umezawa's Jitte. So Jitte is pretty good here. It's going to lock out Leo's threat, what he has currently. It's not anything too amazing, so I could see Felix going for a shuffle here. His Mana Crypt is basically a dead card, but he only needs to draw 1 card off the Ponder and then shuffle it away, so he doesn't mind if 2 cards are dead if one of them is good. And it looks like he is opting for the draw. He's going to take the Mana Crypt. Maybe set up for an Upheaval play. Sorry, the Mana Vault. And there it is. 2 in straight at Leo. He's going to be bouncing the Wrenn and 6 anyway, so no point in attacking that. And this is very much treading water on both sides. So Felix has got an Upheaval, but I don't think he's got a follow-up play to it. And with the amount of removal in Leo's deck, it's possible that an Upheaval needs to be followed up with a very serious threat, even though Felix is going to have a ton of mana. But if he draws any creature costs 3 or more, there's a good chance he's going to win with Upheaval. Going up for another fetch land, so this is nice with the Divining Top. He's got the mana to spin it. He's got the card selection to find what he wants from his deck. He'd love to just slam a Feywild Caretaker here. And we'll take a look. There it is. So depending if he wants to be a little patient and pick up the days first, he could just go straight for the initiative. He doesn't know it, but the upheaval does not accomplish so much against the initiative. These are some pretty good cards to see for Leo. And it looks like he's on the same page, so swapping the Divining Top for the top card of the library, seeing if Felix has got a response. Oh no! So the ability is countered. The Sensei's Divining Top loses all abilities, so Leo does not draw a card this turn. He's not going to be able to look at the top three and rearrange them anymore until he kills that Tidebinder. And also, importantly, it represents a threat that's going to play through the initiative. So Leo can get 2 creatures to block with, but one of them is going to be a chump block. He'd love to crack that fetch land for a 5th mana, but he just can't afford to shuffle away the Caretaker because that's his route into this game. So we'll see Felix's intentions based on whether he goes for the face or the Wrenn and 6, but we're seeing he is willing to shuffle it away, so he's going to have to just draw it manually. But if he can Pyromancer for the 2 tokens, maybe trade off for the Tidebinder, unlock the Sensei's Divining Top, get his card selection back, get his Wrenn and 6, getting him relevant cards. And Felix was just going face, so it's looking like he's very set on the upheaval plan. So he's got 9 mana, he can very safely upheaval, replay the Trinket Mage, have a 2/2 in play to Leo's empty board. But otherwise, Felix hasn't got anything going on. I mean, the 2/2 is not going to close out the game that quickly. So here's the upheaval. He knows Leo. We can take a solid guess that Leo doesn't have anything for it. And we're just working out the mana distribution here. So Leo's 5 mana spell trapped in his hand, but otherwise, top is actually kind of nice because he can get it out of his hand and not discard to hand size next turn. Wrenn and 6 is going to be pressured by a Trinket Mage. And if he follows up Trinket Mage with the Sensei's Divining Top plus Equip, then we're just sorting out the mana distribution here. So Felix does have he can have an untapped island if he floated the right mana before the upheaval, but there's Aether Spellbomb for a little interaction. That is a lot of pretty nice Trinket Mage hits, so Felix has put together a pretty cool Trinket Mage deck here. And accidentally picked up all the cards on the table. Checking if he needs to discard hand size, and we're basically restarting the game, but Felix has had a hell of a turn 1. And importantly, with Leo starting on only 9 life, that Trinket Mage plus Umezawa's Jitte does represent a 3-turn clock. And 2 turns if Leo fires off another fetch land. Looking at the options here, so he's going to fire off the Mana Vault, suit it up, keep the Spellbomb ready, and Jitte is online, which is rough news for any small creatures that Leo draws, which are unfortunately the way that he would normally be pulling into this game. So Ren and Seek's not getting much done right now. It looks like Leo is going to be down to 1 life next turn. Just taking a look in case. And those cards are not going to help him out here. Yep, and we're picking it up. Game 1 goes to Felix with the classic blue versus removal dilemma. So, Leo heading straight to the sideboard. He's probably going to be pulling out removal spells. So, he has pulled out an Oust and he's brought in Death Greeter's Champion. So, these creature removal spells just not making much of a difference here. He's happy to have almost anything else. He just needs to get some kind of threat that's resilient to blue interaction, something that he doesn't mind getting bounced, and get some kind of pressure going against Felix. On Felix's end, he's mostly playing mana production, cantrips. We see he's drawn Duress again, which is going to play great here. Leo's happy with the one lander because he's got Lorien revealed, so he can search up a second land. Just pondering what he's going to fetch with the Windswept Heath and passing it over. And we see Felix nabbing a swamp, probably going for a Duress here. Seeing how the game's going to shape up. And let's take a look. So, one of Leo's better cards here is Sensei's Divining Top. I could see him taking that just to cut him off of the filtering. There we go, we got a red source out of Leo. And Cycling Lorien revealed for the Volcanic Island. So he didn't want to get his Lorien revealed duressed because then he'd be stuck on one land. So I could see Felix going for the top or the relic or the fire ice. They're all kind of interchangeable, just getting the resources going, but they're much better than Lightning Bolt and currently Fractured Identity. So Felix has got Soul Ring again, Umazar's Jitte, Preacher of the Schism, and I believe that's Harvester of Misery. So he's got a 3-mana 2/4. He's probably thinking, is Leo going to be firing up Lightning Bolt plus Fire to deal with the 2/4, and does he care if that happens? Because if he can get Preacher going and Jitte on it the turn after, then that's going to be great. He can do it next turn, so Leo doesn't have much time. And there's a chance he even goes for the Fire Ice just to make sure that he's got access to 3 mana next turn. We also see Dig Through Time in there, get a bit of card advantage. And he's taking the Fractured Identity, so making sure that his Harvester of Misery doesn't get stolen and flickered later. Getting the Enters the Battlefield ability there again makes quite a difference. So Leo just playing face up so that Felix doesn't have to track everything. And yep, we see Preacher of the Schism, so Leo's got 1 turn window to answer this, otherwise it's going to give Felix a second creature, an extra card. Once he's got Jitte on it, it blocks out all of Leo's small creatures. Looks like Leo is going to have a quick look for a counterspell before it resolves, see if he can rip Subtlety off the top. Oh, and Comet is a good card, but Leo, I think, is stuck on 3 lands, so he would have to play Coalition Relic. There is a 4th land, but Pyroblast not so good here yet. Comet can keep up with Preacher of the Schism, but it can't really keep up with Preacher of the Schism plus GT. So we could see Leo going for a play of... this is on Felix's turn, so he can draw the island and the comet over the following 2 turns. Turn 3, he just bolts plus fires the Preacher of the Schism to make sure that that's not getting online. Following turn, oh, he does need a white source, so I'm not sure if he has the right lands to get the comet going without Coalition Relic. So he draws the island, and it's going to have to just be Coalition Relic this turn. So what's really rough with this GT is it's going to put Preacher of the Schism out of range of Fire, Ice, and Lightning Bolt. So without access to Fractured Identity, Leo can't really deal with it. And normally Comet, if he rolls a bunch of 1/1s, he can chump and keep Comet alive, but GT is really good against 1/1 tokens. And we are seeing it here. This is really bad. Felix is going to get a lot of value every time he attacks with the Preacher, not even having to spend extra mana on it. So this cascading advantage is going to put him way ahead. So he makes a token, draws a card, loses a life. Leo takes 2, and now Felix has got an active GT. So once GT has got 2 counters on it, it's really hard for Leo to get anything going in terms of creatures. So yeah, he's drawn the Pyroblast, knowing that he can't cast the Comet very easily, and making sure that he's got something against a blue spell that's being ripped by Felix. Comet is a strong card, but Leo is so far behind on the board. And it looks like he's going to go for the Hail Mary Comet plan. So once the Comet's in play, you don't have to think about it too much. See what Comet does, and we're about to find out. A 6, and it's a 2. So he gets 2 1/1s. Normally good blockers, but the GT kills 2 1/1s for free every turn. So Felix won't be able to kill Comet this turn, but he is going to be able to deal with those 1/1s very easily. So just a rules clarification here. If Preacher attacks a player with the highest life total, then Felix gets a token. But if it's just attacking a Planeswalker, it can't generate a token. But Felix will still draw a card. Now these squirrels do have haste. Leo might figure if they're getting killed anyway, might as well get in for a little bit of damage and possibly deny Felix drawing a card. He's also got the option of lightning bolting Felix. But it's very rough going for a racing strategy when GT can gain 4 life a turn. So Felix has got a Thoughtseize. If he's worried about the lightning bolt causing problems in the middle of combat, he can clear that out of Leo's hand and maybe just see what else could be going on. But it looks like he's going to go for the card draw first. So Preacher triggers. Leo's not going to bolt Felix. So Felix draws a card, does not make a token. He's going to remove the blockers before they can block. He gains one off of the lifelink token, puts Comet back down, and gets the GT back to 2 counters. So you do have to manage the loyalty of Comet a bit, because when it's on high loyalty, if Leo rolls, I believe, a 5, then he can just shoot Felix for very large amounts of damage, and Felix might just get burned out of the game that way. Mana Crypt, lots of mana to spare. We might see a Thoughtseize here just to make sure that things don't get out of control. Oh, and we've got Imperial Seals, so Felix has got to find the best card for the situation. Submerge is quite funny here. So Leo is not playing any green spells, but he is playing lands that are forests. So even though Submerge is an anti-green card, it is actually active against Leo. This is what Richard Garfield had in mind for the Alpha Jewels. So Leo's got access to 6, maybe 7 mana this turn. Redraws the Divining Top. So he can look, shuffle, and look again. So he can look at 6 cards this turn. In terms of what he's looking for, I'm guessing Prismatic Ending is his best out to Umezawa's GT. Once the GT is off the board, he can... And he rolls 2 more squirrels. Normally good, but GT is such a beating against small creatures. It's really hard to keep up on that front. So we'll take a look. Not a very impressive selection. The Wrenn and 6 can take out the lifelinker, get a little card advantage, but he really needs to deal with the GT. Weighing up if this is enough to keep him in the game or if he's going to go for a shuffle. Notably, his Fire Ice does buy him a turn, and it looks like he's leaving it there for now. He's not going to go for anything at sorcery speed. And Fierce gets to draw the card that he tutored for. I think that might have been an upheaval, so good insurance policy if Leo does manage to remove the GT, wrestle back control of the board. Felix can reset the game and have another go. And with the 2 mana rocks, upheaval is just incredible. So Felix is going above Leo's life total, trying to get an extra card off the Preacher. Goes for another attack, probably at Comet. Draws a card. And just deciding if there's merit to removing a squirrel before blocks or after. So Leo has the option here of cashing in the squirrels for more loyalty on Comet, but he'd rather just make sure he gets the 1/1 off the table here. So Felix back up to 18, GT getting more counters. Felix has got 8, maybe 9 mana to work with, so he's always got the option of this upheaval reset. Leo's thinking here, so his Bolt and Fire and Ice aren't too valuable for him, but he might just want to snap them off because the Thoughtseize isn't really that interested in taking the Pyroblast right now either. But knowing that Upheaval is in Felix's hand, I hope he holds on to the Pyroblast, because I think that's what Felix wants to clear out the way. So going for a shuffle, going to look at a new 3 with Sensei's Divining Top. Get a bit more information. If Leo can just get this GT off the board, things are not looking too bad. So Surveil off the District. Feywild Caretaker is too late. With the top 3, so he might be... I think that's a Prismatic Ending. So he can, in fact, deal with the GT next turn, but it's really rough. Takes the Pyroblast, makes sure that the Upheaval will be an option as a safety valve later. And we're going to see the Upheaval right now. Leo just deciding if he's got some responses. He'll draw off the top. So Felix has got 1 mana floating. He can play Sol Ring into Mana Crypt. Oh, and a Mana Leak, of course, off the top. So the Upheaval is not going to happen. So no more backup plan for Felix, but he's still in a pretty advantageous position. So Leo is just drawing Divining Top. He's got a Mox somewhere in the top 3, so he's not drawing 2 live there. A 4, taking a read here. I think this is the recursion effect, so Leo is just going to get a land from the graveyard. Oh, this is the damage. So he's going to deal 4 damage to any target. Notably, Felix doesn't get to respond after the die has been rolled. So I'm not sure if Leo realized he could have killed the Preacher of the Schism there, which would have broken up the Sensei's Divining Top chain. Comet, a very unintuitive card because it doesn't use the word target and it rolls a die on resolution. So it does not work how you would think it works. And Leo just going to rip the card off the top. Prismatic Ending to deal with the Umezawa's GTA. And we'll deal with the GTA that way. Oh, going for the full lockout. So this is a higher upside play. Leo has effectively dealt with the GTA. We're seeing Harvester of Misery, clearing away the squirrel, possibly picking up the GTA next turn. Felix would love to get the GTA on there right now to protect it from the burn package. see what Comet's up to this time. We got a 4 again, so it's going to deal 2 damage and then explode. So probably taking the opportunity to kill off the Harvester, but this is pretty bad for Leo. So he was hoping to run away with the game using Comet. And now that Comet is self-destructed, he can stop Felix, but with Felix having a GT in play, every creature he plays is going to ruin Leo's setup. And we've got the top back, no fetch lands, so hopefully the top 3 is good. We know there's a Mox in there. Felix takes 1 off the Mana Vault. And we're setting up for a Dig Through Time. 2 mana, look at 7. So a good chance Felix is going to be able to find something here, create more headaches for Leo. We're 4 lands. I didn't see any power and toughness there. So we have a cantrip, a treasure cruise, and something else. So Gitaxian Probe is a redraw at least. But it looks like he's going to take the island and something else. Felix doesn't mind too much. He's got card selection from the Occult Epiphany, so he can keep churning through his deck. If he has any more threats in his deck, they're going to play great here. And Occult Epiphany actually is fantastic because he can make a bunch of flyers on Leo's end step, put the GT on one of them. Leo can break that up with the burn spell, but it's just another 2 mana, and then the GT is back online. Leo can't burn whatever is carrying the GT, and it's going to threaten to finish him off and just disrupt whatever he's got going on as well. So using the Coalition Relic mana to spin the top. The Mox is still in there. Malcolm, first threat in a while, but really bad against the GT here. And here's the Occult Epiphany. So we'll probably see Felix make 3 or 4 flyers here. I believe he's doing it for the full 4, so he'll draw 4 cards, discard 4 cards. Can pretty safely throw away a land, instant, sorcery, and creature. And even with Leo's Fire being, in theory, the right answer to these small creatures, it's not enough. So there we go, 4 1/1 flyers. He's going to take out 2 of them right now. Before Felix can untap with counter magic. He does still take 1 off the Mana Vault. But with GT in play, Felix is not in danger of getting burned out. Oh, and there's a time warp. So I'm not sure the exact math. He can almost kill with the time warp this turn. So if he goes full damage, he deals 8 this turn, 6 the next turn. putting Leo down to 2, but I mean, Felix has got him to Turak, lose focus. Leo is pretty locked out of the game here. And just putting down a Dark Confidant and passing. And Felix knows the treasure cruise is on the bottom of the library, so he isn't going to get one shot by the Dark Confidant just yet. So Leo's best shot here might just be Chain Lightning Felix, hope that he flips a 5 off the top and doesn't want to use the GT counters, but taking a look. The thing is, Felix can actually use 4 of the counters without affecting how quickly he kills Leo. So Felix can just gain 8 life here, go to 16, no danger of getting burned out. Because bear in mind, once you know what the revealed card with Dark Confidant is, it's too late to gain life. And he's just going to go for a Thopter token. All right. So Felix goes for the Time Walk. He's got lethal here. He takes 1 off the vault. And he'll pay to untap it. Oh, sorry, he does not take 1 because he untapped it. Oh, and he doesn't take any damage from the Dark Confidant. Looks like the match is all wrapped up here. Just checking how safe he wants to play it. Dismember and Malcolm, not so impressive here. Just taking 3. And Felix can sit back on a counterspell. Plenty of life. Plenty of damage on board. Go for the kill next turn. No need to take a risk. And there's the Malcolm, which unfortunately is not going to get anything done under the GT. GT is just so crushing. It is often trading 2 counters for 1 or even more cards from your opponent. And the fact that it gets 2 counters for free basically every turn, there's just very few ways out of it. So he was considering a Tidebinder there, realizing it doesn't play so well against that top activation. You really want to save it for the tap activation. And also I think Felix is happy to just sit back on a counterspell. Whatever Leo has left to play, he can get it with lose focus anyway. So no damage off the Mana Vault. No 8-drop left to hit. Oh, and it's free as well. Oh, Submerge would have been a spicy one. So yeah, him to clear the way, unless Leo's got something under the Divining Top. Burn through a few of these GT counters. And that's it. That's the match. 2-0 to Felix, and we'll switch POV to Felix for the next one. So match 2, we've got Brendan versus Felix. And we're kicking things off with an island. Apologies for the blurriness. I'm going to need my glasses for this one. But it looks like Brendan's got a Dragon's Rage Channeler. So right out the gates, this is going to be... Or Stern Scolding, very nice. This deck looks like it's going to be able to pressure Felix a lot better than Leo's deck. If he's playing cheap red aggressive creatures. There's a Daretti. And a Wooded Foothills. So depending what kind of removal or defensive tools Felix draws, this might be a more difficult matchup for him. Haven't seen anything out of Brendan's deck just yet. Oh, Tashana's Tidebinder. Countering the fetch land. The kind of thing that can be played around, but it's quite taxing too. So these kind of stifle effects, Tidebinder is currently the only one in the cube, but it's something that can come up in situations like this where you want to use your fetch land when your opponent's tapped out, not expose yourself to this kind of thing. Something that's going to make Brendan play a little bit differently in the next match, but we've got a Burst Lightning to even things up a bit, and maybe another land. All right, so Daretti has been held back a turn. We've got the 2-2 haste. Still devastating for Brendan's plan. He's straight up down a card. So with Felix, I think one of Felix's best tools against these small creatures is Umezawa's Jitte. If Brendan can keep his removal spells ready, he's going to be able to break that up as well. But if Felix can get the Jitte going, it's going to be carrying him through the game. Upheaval not going to be at its best. His counterspell's not going to be at their best. Stuff like Gitaxian Probe, he's paying a real price. So we've got Carnage Interpreter and 2 more lands. So it's not the end of the world that Brendan's down a land. He's drawn a few extras. But the mana difference, you know, it represents 1 extra mana basically on every turn for the rest of the game that he's down. So we've got an Ether Spell Bomb. Again, not so good against these small creatures. And now Brendan's got to think, good chance that Felix has got a counterspell here. He really wants to counter that Daretti because it represents some value that he can't interact with. Though, against Felix, it's not the end of the world. The 1/1s do have Defender. The removal spell at sorcery speed, not too relevant, but he is going to use a lose focus, so no Daretti for this game. And just getting in for a little bit of damage with the 2/2 haste creature. So we've got a Time Warp there. A little bit of a desperation Time Warp, just spinning his wheels, but hopefully drawing into something more relevant because it's going to be a long time before that Time Walk is really getting anything done. 5 mana here. So Harvester of Misery, one of his better tools here. He's dealt with the small creature. He's exposing himself to the Carnage Interpreter if Brendan wants to go for it. He can resolve it, get a little card draw going. But it looks like he's got something else to do. And an Amped Raptor. So, great tempo play here. Brendan likely to get a free spell off the top of his deck. Oh, and it's too expensive. So, Passageway Seer. Too expensive for the Raptor. Brendan's got 2 energy that's likely not going to be relevant. Hitting his land drop, and now Felix has got an opportunity to stabilize. If he can represent at least some counter spells, some interaction, maybe get a GT going, this is the time to do it. The Carnage Interpreter is going to draw Brendan 4 extra cards over the course of a long game, so Felix has got to keep up with that to some extent. But he's got a great blocker. He's going to send it in. and just play a reactive game for now. Oh, Goldspan Dragon. This is where the counter spells can make all the difference because this card is a bit of a nightmare for Felix. Looks like he might have something. And he's got a bounce spell for it. So delaying it a little bit, keeping up in the race. Felix has got a good chance of closing out the game before Brennan can get him because Brennan's got him on a two-turn clock. If Felix has got any way of disrupting what Brennan's got going on, then he buys himself an extra turn and he can finish the job with the Harvester. The life off Brennan's land, quite relevant. Boo, no treasure token. So Brennan's got a treasure. He's probably going to want to use the treasure over his land. Get the last 2 cards out of his hand next turn so he can play the Carnage Interpreter. Unfortunately for Felix, the Harvester only has Menace, so Brennan can set up a block on it next turn. If Felix has got Upheaval, it's going to put him in a pretty good spot, but upheavaling the Ampteraptor is going to be a bit rough for him. So he has got the Upheaval. It looks like he doesn't have much to follow it up with, so we're just kind of resetting to turn 1, seeing if Felix can keep up with Brendan, just restarting the game. But with an Ampteraptor, Brendan's got a great tempo play there. Accidentally showing Brendan an extra card. So if Brendan hits anything relevant off this Ampteraptor in 2 turns, then it's going to be really rough for Felix. He's got the Harvester to kill the Raptor itself, but just discarding down to hand size. And Brendan slightly wary of a counterspell here, but he's just got to go for it. Very high upside. Unlikely that Felix has drawn it in that 1 draw step. So now that he's got 4 energy, he can cast an expensive spell. Oh, and it's still too expensive. Maybe the only card in Brendan's deck that he couldn't cast there. Oh, that is rough. So if Felix can deal with the 2-1, Brendan's probably not playing the Interpreter turn 3. So it depends. There's maybe a sign that Felix has got something else to deal with the Raptor, or he's looking to make it to turn 5 and just cast the Harvester. So with 6 life, it's pretty bad for him to take a hit from the Raptor here. And yeah, just wanted to have a look at his library before choosing whether to discard. It's tough. If he takes 2 here, he is getting in range of a single hit from Goldspan Dragon. So yeah, he is going to clean up the Raptor. Not representing a counterspell. Brennan could go for the Carnage Interpreter here. But if he's got anything else worth playing, I think it's better to go for that first. And he does. It's Chandra, one of Brendan's favorite cards. So he knows there's no counterspell for it. It's going to deal at least 2 damage a turn. Ooh, flips a Demonic Tutor. So he's got lethal next turn if Felix doesn't have any interaction. And it's all lands and a G-Taste, so Brendan takes game 1. Fast start, good pressure. even being down a land, he managed to take over the game. Felix's upheaval and bounce spells were just not suited for all these cheap red creatures. So not much Brendan needs to change about his deck. Felix may be trying to get rid of some of these clunky cards, slim things down a little bit. Brendan has got some kind of slow value stuff with the Carnage Interpreter and the Chandra and the Daretti. Daretti looking a little bit worse than normal in this matchup, but it is just a fairly powerful Planeswalker, you know, something that if Felix has got removal, he can't hit it. Felix's deck is very disruptive towards the combo decks with the Duress, Hymn to Turak, counterspells. I like his odds against a combo deck, but Brendan's fast aggro deck is a bit of a weakness of his. We're ready to go, and Felix on the play. No turn 1 play from Brendan, but he's got a Surveil. It's a tough one, he's going to keep it. Oh, nice. So any turn 2 play out of Felix, he's starting to get on the board early. Sees the tempo of the game. He's got good ways to leverage having a creature, but Brendan's got the removal spell. Well timed. That cut down a bit of a liability in the matchup otherwise. And there's Ragavan. So Felix is really put under the gun here. If he can't stop Ragavan this turn, he's in trouble. He can put down a blocker, but if Brendan's got a removal spell, that's not going to be good enough. Are we seeing a Tidebinder here? Ah, Occult Epiphany, it looks like. So Felix draws 2 cards, discards 2 cards, can make up to 4 spirits, very unlikely, probably going to be 2 or 3, but even a single spirit is really good against this Ragavan here. Felix is kind of trading the Ragavan for barely half a card. Great value for him. And even if Brendan has a removal spell... Oh, he's only going to get 1 spirit, so... Not the ideal here, but still happy to not take the damage off the Ragavan. And Ampharaptor, let's see what we get. Praying for not a removal spell. So these lands are just exiled. Oh no, it's a removal spell. So we've had 3 whiffs off the Ampharaptor for Brendan. And no third land, so probably a very action-heavy hand here. And let's see what's up there. So, Bloodthirsty Adversary, Fury, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Gut, and Night's Whisper. Tough choices here. Brendan would love to rip a land off the top to hit Dragon's Rage Channeler into Night's Whisper. He's got decent players at 2 though. I think decent chance here Felix just takes the Night's Whisper or the Bloodthirsty Adversary. They're probably the most useful cards to Brendan at the moment. The Dragon's Rage Channeler does definitely represent some utility. And then Fury's just kind of dead here. Gut isn't accomplishing as much as it usually does. It is a tough choice. I think depending on how Felix's hand is shaping up, he kind of doesn't mind. He might not mind just stranding Brendan on resources by taking the Night's Whisper, but he is taking the Gut. So in the abstract, a very powerful card, a lot of synergies that can get it going. So Brendan going for the Night's Whisper here. Oh, and he's got another answer to it. So Brendan's really falling behind in terms of mana. He's got great value of creatures. If he can not get overwhelmed by some kind of late game out of Felix, just trade his cards 1-for-1. He's pretty happy with that. Normally Felix would want to neutralize something like this with a big creature, but with Brendan having Fury, it's going to be quite hard to do that. His Harvester of Misery would be very nice here, but it's not a complete brick wall. So here we see it. Felix has again control of the game, but if Brendan can roll together a couple spells with Dragon's Rage Channeler. So Brendan is still pretty... He needs one more type for Delirium. He's got Instant Sorcery Creature. Oh, there's an artifact. And we've got a 4-mana play, Chandra. Oh, this is really good for Brendan. So an unopposed Chandra. Felix does not have great tools to deal with it. If he can roll up a creature, the Time Warp in his hand matters. But he's just going to cycle it off, look for something a bit more impactful. His Otawara can technically get it off the board, but without a counterspell, he can't deal with it. Alright, so making sure Brendan's clear of creatures rather than bouncing the Chandra. So if Brendan doesn't draw too hot here, and Felix draws a creature, he can deal with this Chandra. The Upheaval is pretty good against it. So clearing out that Dragon's Rage Channeler, very good for an Upheaval plan. But again, these bounce effects like Upheaval are not at their best against all these cheap spells. I mean, if you Upheaval Brendan here, obviously on a following turn, Brendan can recover pretty quickly. His cards are all cheap. He's drawing live off the top. Felix would need something quite impactful to follow the Upheaval up to really lock Brendan out of the game. And with Brendan effectively drawing 2 spells a turn, or 2 cards a turn at least. Oh, and he's just going to take the initiative. Alright. So we're into the Undercity. Every turn Brendan is going to get some advantage here. So first he gets a land out of his deck. And if Felix can't take the initiative back, he is going to eventually get buried. The 5 damage represents quite a lot. Chandra's dealing 2 a turn, so Brendan's 2 turns away from killing Felix if nothing happens. And it looks like he doesn't have a sorcery speed threat to follow it up. So this is where Felix's deck that is very geared towards beating combo and disrupting opponents playing big creatures. Brendan's really brought something in that counters this strategy with stuff like the initiative and planeswalkers. It's really good at giving these creature-based decks game against this kind of thing. So we're just clearing up the Passageway Seer, got a counter the turn that Brendan played it, and then 2 counters off of the initiative. Brendan flips a removal spell off the Chandra, so he's just going to go for the damage. Felix is forced to bounce the creature, otherwise he's dead next turn to the initiative. But, so replaying the initiative creature gets you 1 chapter deeper into the dungeon. So next turn Brendan's going to draw an extra card. His Chandra's still alive. Felix is down to 1 card in hand. It's a desperation Upheaval. So Felix is hoping to rip something really impactful off the top. His Sol Ring is quite good here, and Brendan's stuck with a bunch of 4-mana cards, but in 4 turns, Brendan is just going to kill him with the initiative. So this kind of passive reactive strategy is not going to be good enough unless he's got something going. And with Occult Epiphany already out of the picture, that was probably Felix's best tool against the initiative. No 1-drop from Brendan here. Doesn't need more land. And of course, Brendan's going to get the final chapter soon. So he gets a creature out of his deck, basically any creature he wants, with +3/+3 and hexproof. Just taking a look. And Orcish Bowmasters as well. Very nice. And that's it. Brendan wins the match 2-0, and we're off to the finals. Initiative is brutal against these kind of reactive decks and plays really well with Brendan's suite of removal spells. So Brendan can clear a path, make sure that he's not getting attacked back. And when the game stalls out, the initiative just wraps it up in Brendan's favor. And he puts the onus on his opponent to get something going, do something proactive. With Felix just spinning his tires with cards like Upheaval and Time Warp, it's not actually ending the game. It's not getting things going towards a conclusion. So now we're up against Brendan versus Andre. Andre's taken a mulligan. He has wisely selected Lutri as his companion. And I think that's a Field of the Dead. Very spicy. So Andre definitely looking to play a longer game. Ragavan, not what he wants to see, but I would wager he's got a few defensive tools to deal with this. Field of the Dead, another card that's a bit like the Initiative in that it can be quite punishing towards these overly reactive decks, especially decks with counterspells. And Andre definitely leaning more towards a removal spell here to clean up the Ragavan, but a blocker at least puts the onus on Brendan to have a removal spell. An acceleration spell, very nice. And for 3 mana, we've got Elite Spellbinder. So Andre playing a creature that's got some vulnerability to removal, but he can pick one of the removal spells out of Brendan's hand, but that's not going to be enough to keep the Spellbinder alive. So he's kind of... There is a big temptation to go after the rabbit here, because that's kind of covering that's making a hole in Brendan's plan. So maybe if Brendan's hand is all removal spells, he deals with the Ragavan. The 3 mana rabbit is quite bad. So if Andre has a removal spell here, then picking up the rabbit is going to be really good for him. But given that he hasn't cast a removal spell, I think odds are he doesn't have it. So yeah, he's just going to disrupt Brendan's mana. Make sure that he doesn't have a super efficient turn next turn. Because getting Legion Extruder up to 4 mana makes it a very awkward play on a later turn. And this is kind of a sign that maybe Andre has something that dies to cut down but not Legion Extruder. So by encouraging Brendan to play the cut down this turn instead of the Extruder, he's making Brendan's removal spells more awkward than they otherwise would be. So Brendan gets a treasure token and the option to cast a spell from Andre's deck. That side of Ragavan often not as high impact as it looks. So casting your opponent's spells off of Ragavan, it's very tempting because you're getting a free card, but you have to mess with your curve outs. It can be quite mana inefficient and often a spell that your deck isn't really interested in. So Andre's got a nice blocker here, even with the removal spell, and this shows why he took the cut down. So cut down quite good here because he can at the very least get rid of one of them at instant speed. But what Andre can do now is if Brendan plays... So Brendan plays a Legion Extruder here. He can take out the token. Andre crews the vehicle in response, and now he still has a blocker even through a removal spell. And Andre would much rather trade the token for the Ragavan. I mean, trade the vehicle with the Ragavan rather than the token, as odds are he doesn't have a good way to crew it, and he doesn't want to use the vehicle on defense. So Andre's navigated this quite well. He's not given Brendan much free value off the Ragavan, even though it's been in play for much longer than he'd like. We're seeing another great blocker here. And Bristly Bill for a bit of a slow plan to strike back. So Andre's stuck on 3 mana. He can go fishing with the clue next turn to try and hit his land drops, or just pick up Lutri. Not much urgency on picking up Lutri. I don't think he's got the ability to cast it yet. So it'll just be an option if the game completely stalls out and both players are out of resources. Brendan feeling really stuck here. He's got a mana sink with his Legion Extruder, but he's got nothing to sacrifice to it. And he'd love to get some artifact tokens off of Ragavan, but it doesn't look like it's going to be getting through anytime soon. If Andre can put a +1 counter on Draven Inspector, his Ragavan is basically completely obsolete at that point. And Brendan down a land, cycling off his land just to see if he can find some action. If he can roll together 2 removal spells, we're back at parity, but looks like nothing this turn. That might be a Fire Covenant in Brendan's hand, so that's a really good card here. It's going to be able to clean up Andre's total board. Brendan doesn't mind paying a bunch of life. That looks like the best card to get him back in the game from this situation. So I think a lot of consideration towards cracking the clue, maybe hitting a 3rd land. But he's got another spell he'd rather play. And just playing it very safe. So with a 2-mana spell, you could sacrifice the clue, try to draw an untapped land, play both of them. It's more mana efficient, but Andre would much rather just guarantee that he can cast the spell, not take an unnecessary risk. He figures if he can draw the game out, play defense, he's going to be favored in a long game, so he doesn't have to optimize for that. If he loses a mana here or there, as long as he's putting down blockers and setting up, he doesn't mind. He's at a pretty healthy 16. He's threatening Brendan enough that Brendan can't take the initiative. Brendan's Planeswalkers are also not an instant win for him here either. So Andre's positioned himself quite well here. The Fire Covenant ready to maybe turn it all upside down. And here we go. So Brendan loses 5 life, which he's quite happy to do, a healthy 20. Kills all of Andre's creatures. He can get a treasure token off of the Ragavan. Gets his Legion Extruder going. Can start making 3/3s later. Brendan not having a great track record of casting spells from exile. I think we've had 5 or 6 reveals, 0 casts. Alright, a great fetch land for Andre. Oh, and Andre's going to take the initiative. So if Brendan doesn't have a removal spell here, it looks like Andre's going to be way ahead. And even if he does, so Undermountain Adventurer, quite a bulky creature. With Vigilance, it's quite good at taking back the initiative if Brendan manages to get through with a hasty flyer. But obviously with a removal spell, Brendan can take over the game here. So Andre really hoping Brendan doesn't have a Chandra or some other way of clearing out the Undermountain Adventurer. If it's a Goldspan Dragon, that's kind of manageable. He can work things out from there. And Brendan's only got a 1 or 2 turn window to do it, because next turn the Undermountain Adventurer is going to be too big for Chandra. Eventually Andre can get Lutri going as an extra blocker. Oh, and Pyrokinesis. Oh, this is the worst case scenario for Andre. So Brendan has countered the initiative. He's stolen it. The burden is now on Andre to take back the initiative. So Lutri is a very slow way to do it. He doesn't want to be doing that. He's pretty far away from getting tokens off his Field of the Dead. He's got to rip a creature off the top. This is really tense. This is the thing you gotta stress about when you're taking the initiative is you leave any creature on your opponent's board. It's a big threat. If they can find a way to get it through, often the game is all over. Oh, is that a White Plume Adventurer? So, doing it the manual way, Andre takes the initiative without having to hit Brendan. He's got a 5/5 now, so a lot of Brendan's removal is not going to play here. A little consideration going down the other side of the initiative, but he's just going to make a 5/5. So a 5/5, functionally vigilant. Brendan's down to 5. I mean, down to 15. So Andre's got a very good shot at killing him pretty quickly. He's threatening to deal 10 next turn. Brendan doesn't stand a chance in the long game because of the initiative, unless he can get it back. A Goldspan Dragon here would be nice, but maybe not enough. We haven't seen a spell out of Brendan besides Fire Covenant that can deal with the 5/5. Weighing up his options here, and he's just got to pass back to Andre. So Brendan loses 5 life. He's looking at taking another 5 from the Undermountain Adventurer. Andre, last turn, did just have a land in hand. But Lutri is also really going to mess with this because now, even if Brendan has a removal spell, Andre can flash in Lutri, trade off for the Ragavan. We're up to 5 out of 7 lands for the Field of the Dead. Oh, Omnath, very nice. White, blue, red, green. Andre draws a card. He has not played it. He's going to not play a land first. Orcish Bowmasters, getting in all value. So Andre takes 1 off the Enters trigger. When he draws a card, he takes another 1. Brendan gets a 2/2. Lots of triggers going on here. So Orcish Bowmaster resolves, deals 1 to Andre, puts 1 counter on the army. Brendan seeing if there's another play he needs to make. So Omnath comes in, Andre has to draw a card, which triggers the Bowmasters again. Puts Andre down to 9, up to a 2/2. I think Brendan, considering shooting the White Plume Adventurer there, so if Andre sends it in, Brendan could have a better block if he shoots it with the Bowmasters first. But I think if Brendan sets up a good block on the White Plume Adventurer, then Andre is quite happy to just not send it in. Brendan would rather try and get damage in. Andre's Omnath just gained him 4 life, which is pretty rough for Brendan's plan of just trying to get damage in. If Brendan goes for a suicide attack next turn, gets a creature through, he does steal the initiative, but he only gets the counters mode. He doesn't get the 5 damage. Oh, Headliner Scarlet. This is really nice. Andre cannot block this turn. Brendan can steal the initiative without losing much. This is 2, 3, 5, 8 damage. Puts Andre down to 5. Andre has to steal the initiative back next turn in order to not die to the 5 damage. Fortunately, he's got a Vigilance creature. And Andre is 1 damage short of killing Brendan next turn. This is really close. If Andre can play a fetch land, he wins off the Oh, he doesn't win off the Omnath trigger. He needs to hit a third land drop. If he plays Lutri, he can block 3 of Brendan's creatures, but 3 is not 4. Brendan would win off the attack back. It looks like Brendan is going to win the game off of Andre's initiative. This was really close. Andre's going to have 3 mana with which to cast whatever he draws off the top, though. So if it's a removal spell... Oh, it's a... Oh, but it costs 4 mana. Oh, that is devastating. Just checking what his options are. Oh, Andre can get Brendan to 1. He could make 2 blockers, but he's 1 mana short despite having 9 mana. What a close game. And also, if he became the Monarch, he would take 1 damage off of the Orcish Bowmasters, which wouldn't matter too much, but... Just sharing a few hidden cards. Toxic Deluge. Not too relevant right now. So Andre deals 5 off the initiative and packs it up. That's game 1 to Brendan. What a close match. Stole it off of Andre's own initiative. This is a tense finals. So Brendan really putting on a clinic of how to fight back against the initiative. So his cheap creatures and aggressive strategies are perfect here. Oh, so smart play from Brendan here. He's killed all of the creatures so that even if Andre has a suite of removal spells, he can't steal the initiative. He's just saying, yep, you need creatures to take back the game, so all the creatures are gone. Very nice. So all of Brendan's, his cheap creatures, his planeswalkers, he's got really good tools for stealing the initiative, fighting against these initiative decks. He's not quite the type of deck that Andre is built to beat. He's got a great mix of removal and creatures. Andre kind of forced to keep his initiative cards in because they are so powerful, but they're a little bit of a liability in this matchup. Not too much sideboarding from either player. You know, Brendan's removal spell's still alive. Andre's creature's still very important. He'd like to have a bit of a faster defense. So Brendan straight out of here with the haste creature. Oh, and a 1/4. This is a great blocker. Fanatic of Voronis, often a little bit rough against the removal spells in Vintage Cube, but here just blocking is great. So here it is getting finished off. But Andre's got Nadu, which is a bit of a new addition. Looks like he's going to start with Bristly Bill. Maybe he's got a land drop. Oh, stuck on 2 lands off of a mulligan to 5. That is quite tough for Andre. He really doesn't want to trade the Bristly Bill off, but he also doesn't know how long it's going to take before it gets a +1 counter on it. So he might just take the opportunity here if Brendan offers. Really rough for Andre's strategy. He just wants to hit land drops, survive the early game. Gum things up so that no one's attacking and then take over with the initiative. But it's not looking like the way the game's shaping up. But if Andre has a fetch land here, he's got a 4/4 blocker, which is valuable. Oh no, it's just a Birds of Paradise. That is really rough. One of the worst possible draws. Hopefully he's got a little something worth playing, but... So he's got Leyline Binding, which I believe is 3 mana at the moment. Depending if that's a Scrubland or a Savannah. So he's going to go for the block. Playing it safe. Brendan probably slamming down Chandra here. And yeah, Andre is nowhere near having the pressure to deal with this, so he's got Leyline Binding. So he's going to have to... Ah, right. So Samwise gets back the Bristly Bill. So that's why he was waiting to trade it off. Samwise is now the Ring Bearer, which mostly just means it's a little harder to block. It's shaping up a little better. You can get in for 3 on the Chandra, which cuts off the minus Chandra as a removal spell. His 3/2 Sam is... Andre's quite happy to just have any creatures, really. So Brendan drew Gut, which is not at its best here. He'd love to have a creature in play before casting Gut so that he can get the trigger immediately. Otherwise, it's quite slow. Considering whether he's going to make mana with Chandra or just try and draw a spell. But Brendan's pretty heavy on the spells here, and it looks like he's got 2 black spells. So the 2 red mana, probably not too appealing for him right now. So yeah, just seeing if he can hit a spell. If he's got a removal spell or a blocker for the Samwise, he can keep Chandra around another turn, which is good. So he is going to draw 2 extra cards here. Oh, Fire Covenant. Oh, no. So with this, he can kill all of Andre's creatures, keep Chandra alive. This was a sick top deck for Brendan. Oh, and he's got another way to kill all of Andre's creatures. So he pays 2 life, kills Bristly Bill and Samwise. Andre's low on lands, low on cards, and facing an active Planeswalker. Oh, very poor timing for that fetch land to show up. A turn earlier, and that Bristly Bill would have really been going off. So you can Leyline Binding the Chandra, bring things to a type of parity, get the Birds of Paradise down. He's probably hoping that Brendan's hand is nothing but removal, so he can draw the game out to a point where things like Lutri and Field of the Dead start to matter. Oh yes, can't get Basic Forest with that fetch land. These field decks, fetching can get very complicated. You gotta remember what lands are in your deck. Some of them are tapped, some of them are untapped. Some of them have some utility. And in this case, I think he's doing some math about Leyline Binding, how much domain he can get up. Tiger versus Steam Vents. And we're getting a tapped Steam Vents, so I think that puts Leyline Binding down to 1 or 2 mana. So you can play Birds of Paradise and Leyline Binding. Oh, and we're leading off with Nadu, so Brennan can trade his Chandra for the Nadu, but Andre gets a card, and he's not too upset about that. Slightly more greedy line, but it is high upside if Brendan doesn't have a way to deal with the Nadu. And you do have to go for more of these risky plays when you're behind. So Andre's starting on a mulligan to 5, devastated by that sweeper, facing an active Planeswalker. He's got to take some risks if he wants to be in the game. So Brendan dealing with it, not in the ideal way, but so he loses 4 life and Andre gets a Nadu trigger. You'd love to hit a land off of this. Oh, that's really nice for him. So 5 lands. If he draws another land off the top, he can cast Lutri next turn. Headliner Scarlet, pretty decent, but Andre can kind of play through it. So Andre is down to Birds of Paradise and Leyline Binding, but if he hits enough lands to get the field online, that's pretty good. He's got his 6th land now, so he can set up Lutri here. So flash in Lutri on Brendan's turn. Maybe try and trade it off with the Scarlet. Maybe try and hit the Chandra. He's got a little bit of life to work with. He doesn't want to go too low. And we're seeing Leyline Binding this turn. So he doesn't want Brendan to get the free card off the Headliner Scarlet. He wants to set up Birds of Paradise. Chandra's going to stick around for a little while, but Andre's going to have the tools to pressure in the future. If he rips a land off the top, it's pretty great. A lot of his spells are good here. He's setting himself up for success. He's just got to work through all of the extra cards that Brendan's got. And of course, hoping that Brendan doesn't seize the initiative too quickly. So that's just another 2 damage. Though, if Brendan takes the initiative now, Andre's actually got the tools to deal with it. So the 2/2 tokens and Lutri, good attackers because they're good against removal. Tough choice for Brendan. He's got a Demonic Tutor for the best card in his deck in this situation. And it is tough to say. I think with that Chandra Exile, he would have rather flipped over a Goldspan Dragon and just cast it off the top. Now he's got a really tough choice. I could see him picking up Daretti here, or a removal spell, or possibly just a Goldspan Dragon. So he's just doing the fetch land now to save time shuffling. Otherwise, if he takes the initiative here, he's fairly safe. The Passageway Seer does alright. There's a chance Andre has a way to put a counter on the bird in the future, but it's not going to happen next turn. So it is the Passageway Seer. Brendan takes the initiative, gets a land out of his deck. In a way, this is an opportunity for Andre, but he's also putting a definite timer on the game, because if Andre has enough time, the tokens off of Field of the Dead are really good for him. Birds of Paradise usually better than a land, but not in this game. And he's just passing it back, so no land. Gonna flash in Lutri. Didn't see what the other card is. There's a big Passageway Seer, and the clock's ticking for Andre to steal back the initiative. Pyrokinesis. So Brennan has to cast it right now. He can't save it till the end of the turn if he wants to cast it. Doesn't really care about dealing with Birds of Paradise, but he's got spells to spare. Doesn't cost mana, so really just a 1-for-1. Making sure he's not going to get punked out by a +1 counter on the bird. And we see Gut. Gut is really rough, so it means that Andre has to block this turn. Unless he has a removal spell for the Gut. Or the Passageway Seer. Which he does not. So if he does have to Lutri and then chump the 5/5, it's really bad. Oh dear. Takes 4, and it looks like Brendan is going to take the whole draft. Unless Andre rips something really impressive at the top. Carnage Interpreter, very nice. Now let's see, he's got 1 spell. A land would be nice here. But he would have to have a miracle. Under Mountain Adventurer, alright. Good start, good start. So this is a land and a spell. Does he have an appropriate basic to trigger Field of the Dead? And it's looking like he doesn't. Oh dear, it's so you don't want to run multiples of a basic in a Field of the Dead deck. Andre's very heavy on the green, so he needs the forest. He doesn't really want to draw a plains or an island, so I understand. It makes a lot of sense that there aren't any of those in his deck, so checking if he's sideboarded it out as a possibility. Oh, that is how punishing. But that is the price of having good mana in your four color deck. But not sure if it would make a difference here. He's still facing down a lot of damage. Any creature that hits him is an extra 5 damage. Chandra's in play. It's got to be all locked up for Brendan. And just textbook, aggressive, cheap creatures, removal, all the basics, showing how Vintage Cube is played. Congratulations to Brendan for winning the tournament. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.